Hello, my dear friends. Here I am to help you with the CSIR net topics that you really can't miss. So, our mission is let's crack it. I'm here with the topic on C elegans. So, in this particular section, I will be dealing with introduction of C. elegans, anterior and posterior, dorsal and ventral axis, right and left axis formation, and its autonomous and conditional specification. And one among the important topic in C. elegans is the valval development. After discussing all these topics, I will be discussing on the question answers of this particular topic that has been previously asked in the CSIR net exams. So moving on to introduction of C. elegans. Xenorhabditis elegans, that is C. Xenorhabditis elegans. Xenorhabditis elegans, it's a nematode worm. It's a protozoan. We know organisms has been classified into protozoans and deuterozoans. Protozoans means those organisms in which mouth is formed prior to anus, and the deuterozoans means anus is formed prior to mouth. Here the Xenorhabditis elegans is protozoans, and it possesses a feature called utili. Utili means fixed number of cells. That is, in every species, the number of cells is getting fixed. And it is the perfect model organism in developmental biology. So look into the features what make it into a perfect model organism for developmental biology. First, the developmental process is a very speedy process. That is, the transition from zygote to embryo to adult is a speedy process. So we don't have to wait for too long. So it's a speedy process. Development is too fast. Then no cuticle and so transparency is seen. So individual cells can be easily visualized through all stages of development. Then comes no alternative, another feature, that is alternative splicing is not seen here. So the phenotype can be predicted. So these such features make it a perfect model organism for developmental biology. Then looking into what all experiments or what all things has been experiments has been conducted in Xenorhabditis elegans. First, it was the first organism. The first one is it was the first organism in which small interfering RNA was successfully used for gene silencing. And then comes it was the first organism to be studied with green fluorescent protein. It's a reporter gene from jellyfish. And then it was the first organism in which apoptosis was studied. Apoptosis means cell death, in which that apoptosis was studied. Then it was the first multicellular organism to be sequenced completely. Almost 20,000 genes has been sequenced. So this is all about Xenorhabditis elegans. Then moving on to the cell lineage chart. I have told we are going to learn about the anterior, posterior, then about the right left axis, dorsal, ventral axis formation. Before that, we really need to know how that cells, that is the zygote, is getting cleaved. Then only we can go through those topics: anterior, posterior, dorsal, ventral, right left axis portions. Okay, so look into the cell lineage chart. Cell lineage chart, we know there is a zygote. It is getting cleaved into AB and P1. Then AB is getting cleaved into ABA, ABP. AB is getting cleaved into ABAL and ABAR. ABAL, from it develops development of farnese hypodermis neurons takes place. Then comes ABAR. From it, fairness hypodermis neurons develop. Then look into the fate of ABP. It is getting cleaved into ABAL, ABPL and ABPR. And from it, hypodermis neurons develop. From ABPR, hypodermis neurons develop. Altogether 389 cells. Then look into P1, how it is dividing. It divides into EMS and P2. From EMS, the cleavage occurred in the manner that it cleaves into MS and E. From MS, it cleaves into muscle, fairness, gonad, total 18 cells. Then E, from it, intestine develops, that is the endoderm. From that, intestine develops 20 cells. Look at in the fate of P2, it develops into C and P3. That P2 is getting cleaved into C and P3. From C, muscle, hypodermis and two neurons are developing, total 47 cells. P3, it is getting cleaved into D and P4, muscle 20 cells, P4, Z2 and Z3 germline cells. So, looking into how many, 389 cells plus 80 cells plus 20 cells plus 47 cells plus 20 cells plus 2 cells. Altogether, we are getting 558 cells, means 558 cells. And that is in the case of initially, means previously or early hatched larvae. Further division of cells results in the formation of 959 cells usually established there. Okay, this is about the cell lineage chart. Moving on to anterior posterior axis specification. Here we will be dealing when it occurs and how it occurs. So, anterior posterior axis specification takes place at the time of fertilization. It takes place at the time of fertilization and it depends on the position of sperm pronucleus. In the case of oocyte, it has no polarity initially, but it has got definite arrangement of partitioning defective or proteins. Looking into the cytoplasm, oocyte cytoplasm, we can see mainly so looking into that, we can see definite arrangement of partitioning defective or proteins. Before sperm entry, look into the condition of cytoplasm. We can see that there are two cytoplasms like dense cytoplasm or cortical cytoplasm. It is indiffusible. The contents are indiffusible in the dense cytoplasm. And comes the clear cytoplasm or central cytoplasm. It is diffusible. Its contents are diffusible. Now look into the contents. What are the contents? In dense cytoplasm or cortical cytoplasm, we can see the part 3. We have already said a definite arrangement of partitioning, definite defective is seen in the case of oocyte cytoplasm. So what are they? PAR3 and PAR6 and PKZ3 kinase are all in the dense cytoplasm or cortical cytoplasm. And clear cytoplasm or central cytoplasm we can see is the PAR1 and PAR2. Initially, PAR1 and PAR2 has the tendency to always PAR1 and PAR2 has a tendency to enter into the cortical cytoplasm from the clear cytoplasm, but that entry is getting blocked. How it will be dealt? That is, before sperm entry, Rho-GIF is converting the Rho-GDP to Rho-GTP. Then actin-myosin polymerization occurs and cytoskeleton tension will be present in the cortical cytoplasm. And there the PAR3, PAR6 and PKZ3 are attached there. Also, this tension keeps the PAR3 and PAR6 and PKZ3 in the cortical cytoplasm. Moreover, PKZ3 in the cortical cytoplasm inhibit the entry of PAR1 and PAR2 into cortical cytoplasm. How? It's a kinase enzyme. So by phosphorylating PAR1 and PAR2, it inhibits or restricts the entry of PAR1 and 2 into the cortical cytoplasm and restricts them there in the clear cytoplasm. So this is the mechanism before sperm entry. But after sperm entry, what happens is the sperm centrosome or microtubule organizing center protect the PAR2 from phosphorylation. So we have already said before sperm entry, what inhibits the P2 or PAR1 PAR1 or PAR2 from entering into clear cytoplasm is through the phosphorylation given by the PKZ3. But now that PAR2 is protected from phosphorylation, so that PAR1 and PAR2 can enter into cortical cytoplasm. Okay, then once PAR1 and PAR2 enter into cortical cytoplasm, PAR1 can phosphorylate PAR3 in the cortical cytoplasm. Then PAR3 and PAR6 and PKZ3 leave the cortex because the Rho-GIF is inactive, so Rho-GDP will be the result. Rho-GDP cannot be formed. Then active myosin depolymerization. That cytoskeletal tension is nothing. Such things are not present. So PAR3 and PAR6 and PKZ3 will be leaving the cortical cytoplasm and will be occupied by PAR1 and PAR2. Then division occurs. That is, the zygote is getting cleaved into two cells. Those cells with PAR3 and PAR6 will be anterior and those with posterior, PAR1 and PAR2 will be the posterior. Look into the picture now. We can see PAR3 in the cortical cytoplasm. And upon sperm entry, we can see that PAR2 is relocating to cortical cytoplasm. Once that occurs and division occurs, PAR2 will be in the posterior, P1, and PAR3 will be in the anterior. So this is how the anterior-posterior axis formation in C. elegans. Now we're moving on to dorsal ventral right-left axis specifications or formation. We can see that, look into the picture, anterior and posterior, and the cell is getting cleaved into, zygote is getting cleaved into AB and P1. AB is getting cleaved into ABA and ABP. P1 is getting cleaved into EMS and P2. AB is getting cleaved into ABAL and ABAR. ABP is getting cleaved into ABPL and ABPR. EMS is getting cleaved into MS and E. P2 is getting cleaved into P3 and C. Why this has been dealt is because where the ABP is present and EMS is present, depending on that, the dorsal ventral axis is getting formed. So, moving on to dorsal ventral. Dorsal ventral specification is established in the second division, that is ABP division. Here is the ABP division. AB getting into cleaved into ABA and ABP. Where ABP present, it will be the dorsal side of the embryo. It will be the dorsal side of the embryo. Where EMS is present, it will be the ventral surface of the embryo. Now moving on to, this is all about dorsal ventral specification. Now moving on to right and left axis formation. Right-left axis specification of formation takes place at the 12-cell stage, and it occurs when MS blastomere contact half the granddaughters of the ABSL. You have to note that right-left axis specification. Right-left axis specification occurs through MS blastomere's interaction with granddaughters of the ABSL. So this is all about dorsal ventral right-left axis specification. Moving on to autonomous specification and conditional specification. First, autonomous specification. You all know what is a specification. Specification means it's a process in which undifferentiated cell is getting destined to a particular fate, to a differentiated fate. Okay, this is about the autonomous, this is what the specification, and it has been classified into autonomous specification, conditional specification, and third one not specified here but present is syncytial specification. Now looking into what is autonomous specification. Autonomous specification is the specification in which the cytoplasmic or determining factors within the cell is playing the key role for a cell to get differentiated or to achieve a particular fate. Note the interaction with neighboring cells or in position the cell is getting destined to particular fate. This is the autonomous specification, but the case is different in the conditional specification where the interaction with neighboring cells is the determining factor. What signal it receives from the neighboring cells is determining that particular cell to be, what its fate to be. So here is the autonomous specification. Who is carrying out the autonomous specification? It is carried out by P1 cell. Who is carrying out? It is done by P1. Okay. It's carried out by P1. Then about, we already told P1 is the carrying out the autonomous specification. For a cell to be autonomous, there must be cytoplasmic or any determining factor. That is what we mean by autonomous specification. So P1 has got certain transcription factors or determining factors. What are they? It is three number. First one is the SKN1. The SKN1 essential for the EMS blastomere's fate. It is determined that fate. What will be the fate is the EMS blastomeres. For the fate of EMS blastomere, SKN1, a transcription factor of P1 will be, cytoplasmic determinant of P1 is needed. Then comes the how it is, how that mechanism occurs. SKN1 produces another transcription factor, MED1 and 2. And finally, the fate will be MS fate through TBX35, PHA4, HLS1 and muscle fairness. MS fate will be the result. Then another one is another factor, cytoplasmic factor will be PAL1. PAL1 will be the another transcription factor, and it is essential for the fate of C. C fate is being determined by PAL1. C fate and ectoderm muscle hypodermics. But that fate is getting denied by who? TBX 35. Denied. Sorry. that TBX35 is denying the fate of or blocking the fate of PAL1. Then comes another one. Another transcription factor is the pi1. Which one? Pi1. Pi1. It is essential for the germline fate. For the germline fate. Germline fate. Okay, so P1 is undergoing the autonomous specification and it has got three transcription or cytoplasmic factors, that is this SKN1, PAL1 and PI1. And SKN1 is necessary for the fate of EMS blastomeus, PAL1 is necessary for the C fate blastomeus fate, and PI1 is necessary for the germline fate. And inhibitions here are TBX35 is inhibiting the C fate carried out by PAL1 and POP1 is inhibiting the E fate endoderm fate, okay, or E fate is being inhibited. This is about the autonomous specification. Moving on to conditional specification. Why it is needed? It is necessary for cell endodermal cell lineage and specification of ABP cell fates. Okay, so look into the cell signaling in four-celled embryo of C. elegans. We know sperm entry, upon sperm entry, then cleavage of, zygote form, then cleavage, ABP and T1 are the result of zygote cleavage, first cleavage, and then it is further getting cleaved into ABP. AB is getting cleaved into ABP, ABA, and P1 is getting cleaved into P2 and EMS. Then how from this endodermal cell lineage and specification of ABP cell fates occurs. Okay, so ABP, why that specification or differentiation between ABP and ABA are needed? Because ABA and ABP are being conditionally specified by P2. That means ABP and ABA are equipotent, means they have the ability to carry out similar functions, but depending upon interaction with P2 there occurs the differentiation in function between ABA and ABP. So the conditional specification is being highlighted here. Okay, then that is why I have given the two conditional specifications. Here are endodermal cell lineage fate determination and specification of ABP cell plates. Looking into detail of the endodermal cell lineage, here we can see P2 and EMS. How that specification occurs? We have already said conditional specification. So an external signal must be given to EMS cell for its fate. That is, the fate ultimately will be either endodermal cells or mesodermal cells. How that specification occurs? Look into P2. We can see that P2 is producing the MOM2. MOM2 is a ligand, like Wnt, it's a Wnt protein. So to receive a Wnt protein, EMS must have receptor named MOM5. It's a frizzled receptor, Wnt frizzled. Okay, so that signaling, when that MOM2 MOM5 interaction occurs, there will be a downward signaling cascade. Then upon downward signaling, what will be the result is, in the EMS cell, before that signaling occurs, we can see is POP1 will be equally distributed all over in the EMS. That is, EMS will be having POP1 all over. Here the POP1, 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 POP1. Okay, everywhere POP1 is present, equally distributed. Before that signaling cascade occurs, POP1 is there. POP1, POP1, here POP1. This is the condition. But once downward signaling occurs, that POP1 is getting inhibited in one side. Okay, it is getting inhibited in one side. So Here there will be no POP1. Here no POP1. No POP1. Here will be no POP1. So where POP1 is inhibited, that will be following the endodermal fate. Where POP1 is inhibited, it will be following the endoderm fate or E1 fate. So we can see that here POP1 is inhibited. Here POP1 is inhibited. It will be following the E fate. This will be E. Okay. And where POP1 is present, it will be following the MS fate. It will be following the MS fate or mesoderm fate. This will be endoderm fate and MS fate. So look here, that when downward signaling occurs, POP1 where it is inhibited, it will be the E fate, and where POP1 is present, it will be the mesoderm fate. This is all about the endoderm cell lineage, and for that there must be an interaction between P2 and EMS. The conditional specification is clearly visible here. Then moving on to the specification or the differentiation in function between ABP and ABA through P2 interaction with ABP. For that also, there must be a ligand, then receptor, then downward signaling cascade, then differentiation occurs. This is the strategy. So, looking into P2, we can see that P2 is producing a ligand, that is APX1. It is the delta. Then it will be received by receptor on ABP. It will be the GLP-1. When that APX1 and GLP-1 interacts, a downward signaling occurs and the fate of ABA and ABP becomes different. Initially, they were equipotent because they were conditionally specified by P2. Whatever signal is given by them is just followed by ABP and ABA. Even if before the interaction between P2 occurs, ABA and ABP are equivalent. That means if their position are displaced, the normal embryo will only be the product because they are equipotent to do the function. But when P2 interacts with the ABP, the differentiation in fate or their function gets differentiated. Okay. So I hope all these topics, that is introduction about C. elegans and its axis formation and how the autonomous and conditional specifications in C. elegans are clear to you now. More important topic in C. elegans is the valval development, and it will be dealt later in much more detail. So I hope all these are clear to all these points are clear to you. Questions has been asked from this topic for several times in the CSIR net. So go through this. If you like my video, just subscribe, like, comment and share and click the bell icon. Thanks for watching. Also keep in mind that let's crack it.